Hello and welcome back to The Hatch. I'm Rosie Murphy.
And I'm Sammy Roth, and this is the podcast where we talk about Lost.
We have reached Enter 7-7. It's the formal introduction of Mikhail Bakunin, our favorite other/last member of the Dharma Initiative.
And we've got an interview with Andrew Divoff, who plays Mikhail, and he has some real interesting war stories to tell about his work on this show and his life in general. It's a good time.
I can't wait. Let's get into it. As always, we start each episode with our hot take on the episode we have just viewed. Sammy, what is your hot take about Enter 7-7?
So, this is a little bit tangential to the plot of the episode, but I just thought that Locke just continuously embarrassed himself this episode. Like, again and again. Like, first, he shows up to the gunfight, like, after it's already over, and kind of just pokes his head in with his gun sticking out, and, like, Sayid and Kate have already taken care of it. And then he says, well, we couldn't possibly be another person in here, because I searched every nook and cranny, to which Sayid immediately
pulls back the rug.
Yeah, and reveals the trapdoor that Locke didn't find. Okay. And then, most embarrassingly, when Sayid and Kate are crawling around the basement looking for the mysterious second other, Locke goes back to the computer, puts his gun down on the table, and keeps playing chess. And, of course, it comes back to bite him pretty bad, because while he's not watching Mikhail escapes and puts a gun to his neck, a knife. So, I don't know, man. I don't know what Locke was doing this week.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we have not seen much of Locke in Season 3 at all, with the notable exception of further instructions. And I think he is kind of a little out of it in this episode. I mean, he seems out of it. He just doesn't seem very sharp. And
agreed.
When they undertake this quest, I mean, everybody kind of has their own mission here. Like, Kate's mission is to rescue Jack. Sayid is interested in rescuing Jack, but is more interested in finding out where the others live and kind of casing the place, I think. And John is just here because he feels like he's supposed to be, and he's searching for meaning. He's searching for some kind of answers. And you know what I mean?
Yeah, well,
like, John is not fighting the same fight that Kate and Sayid are.
I mean, John is here because, as Sayid reminded us, the sunlight shone in a nice way on Echo's stick and illuminated, lift up your eyes and look north, John 305. So yeah, I think you're right that he's looking for something and he doesn't know what it is. And perhaps that's why he gets so distracted by the chess game, in addition to the fact that, as we know, Locke loves games with high stakes.
Right.
I don't know, I feel like I have more thoughts on Locke later, but maybe we should finish our hot takes.
Sure. So before we get to me, we actually have a hot take from a listener.
Oh, yeah.
That's very exciting.
Let's play the tape.
Hey, Rosie and Sammy. This is Spencer, and this is my hot take for episode Enter 7-7. I absolutely love this episode, and I think it's one of the best in Season 3, especially at a point when the episodes weren't progressing the story as quickly as many of us would have liked, especially with the episode a couple episodes prior, Stranger in a Stranger Land. But I think the introduction of the Flame Station in Mikhail was a fantastic kind of tie-in to the whole Dharma Initiative lore that I absolutely loved. I know the first time I watched it, I did believe that Mikhail was a member of the Dharma Initiative. And at that point as well, it kind of just jump-started my Dharma obsession. And the Flame was a really neat station to me, and I wish we got a little bit more time with it to learn, seeing all those binders about food drops and kind of how the stations operated, as well as the organization as a whole. I thought that was really incredible. And that's my hot take.
Spencer, thank you very much for the hot take. If anyone else wants to call and leave a hot take, you know where to find us, 9546 Dharma. That's an American number, so +1 9546 Dharma. And Spencer, I think we agree with you. This is an awesome episode.
I'm not quite as gung-ho about it as you and Spencer are. I did like it.
Okay.
I like all the Sayid episodes.
Well, what's your hot take?
So, this flashback actually doesn't quite work for me.
What?
I'm sorry. I know that's going to be polarizing, but...
Rosie, we're the vice president of Sayid Inc.
I fundamentally, like, am struggling to understand why he lies about the fact that he tortured this woman. You're making a face, which suggests to me that you have a perfect understanding of why he does this.
Well, I guess I thought it was fairly straightforward that he's lying because he doesn't want them to kill him.
But doesn't it seem like the guy's going to kill him anyway?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's the only thing that he can do to protect himself. I just think it's his survival instinct. I thought that was what was so powerful about the last scene in the flashback, where the
confession,
his sort of shame and his morality finally overcome that, need to live through this.
Yeah, and the confession is so powerful and so emotional that, it's clearly genuine. It leaves absolutely no doubt in the mind that he's sincere. That I was just like, if you've been carrying this burden, why did you not just lay it down sooner?
I mean, if someone walked up to you and, put a gun to your head and asked you to
sort of kidnap you from a restaurant.
And complicated series of events and pointed the gun at you and said, I know that you did this terrible thing, confess right now, would you just be like, yeah, that was me?
I feel like Sayid may have. I mean, not so casually, but like, he's clearly reckoned with what he's done. He clearly, it's the greatest series of regrets of his life, and I don't know. I kind of am a little surprised that he did try to self-preserve. I mean, I guess he's still at this point hoping to find Nadia, and
That's right.
It's not like he has nothing to live for.
You see, I thought he confessed because he was just finally broken by the woman's speech.
Yeah,
by,
that too.
By hearing her talk about how, she knows, I think the comment where she says that basically that as a result of Sayid's actions, she has lived in fear her whole life since then. I don't know, I just think, I was moved almost to tears by that. I can only imagine what Sayid was feeling, having been the cause of that.
Right.
I hear you. I don't know. I guess I thought it was kind of straightforward.
I get it. I think as sort of a dramatic device, it works brilliantly. It leads to this super powerful ending scene. But I mean, I trust Sayid so much, I guess, and he's so honest all of the time that I had forgotten that that's the twist that this episode took. And I was like, who are these strangers who've kidnapped Sayid and are trying to make him to confess to something he didn't do? And then, of course, it turns out he did, but I just expected him to confess right away.
So you were watching it thinking that it seems like he's really telling the truth. He didn't do this. What's going on?
Yeah. Yeah. So he fooled. I guess my hot take is that he fooled me. Ultimately.
I remembered the twist, but I definitely remember, like, I don't know if I remember watching it the first time, but I think one of the virtues of the flashback is that it keeps the first-time viewer in suspense about whether he really did it or not. Maybe it was too convincing.
It does a very good job. I mean, part of this, obviously, is that I've seen the show before, but usually you can figure out where the flashback's going to go.
And this one took a turn that you...
took a turn that I didn't expect.
Yeah, and frankly, I think that's what's so powerful about the ending.
Yeah.
Where you realize he's been holding this back the whole time, how much it's, wrecking him inside, like...
Right,
I don't know,
he's not
I
this
think...
sort of cold-blooded killer, which he does occasionally present on the island, right? I mean, he is called upon to sort of do horrible things, and he does them, and it's in the service of the greater good, to harken back to an earlier Site episode.
No, it's that was a Leonard Dick episode too, which no, and it's good to be reminded of that, and I think that in that moment where he, the shame and the guilt kind of boil over and he confesses, like, I think in that moment, as we've seen him in the past, he is willing to lay down his life, as penance for what he's done. Whereas this whole episode he's been trying to survive, and now he's realizing, well, no, I can't hold this back anymore. I deserve to die for this. I'm going to confess, which then leads to the sort of amazing, graceful moment where she forgives him.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. This is. I'm glad we talked about this because I'm realizing now that my discomfort here is just that Sayid fooled me.
Well, and I think you don't like that he was lying the whole time either.
No, I don't, because he was so convincing.
Anyway, what else were you thinking about this episode?
Oh gosh.
I hope you liked the island storyline.
Oh, of course. How could I not like the introduction of Mikhail?
There's no way.
Yeah, I thought it was brilliant. I love the cabin. I love their, secret tactical approach to the cabin. I love that they just sort of spread out and start exploring once they're in there, and you have Kate opening these fridges and finding meat, and you have John Locke encountering this computer, and they're just kind of wandering around, and thank God for Sayid, who is the only... Like, Kate is definitely skeptical, but Sayid is the only person who reads this cold.
Absolutely.
And knows what's going on.
Well, the fact that he picks up on the things with the stirrups is incredible.
That's Sayid.
It is Sayid.
And then, I mean, again, the episode just turns on a dime when he and Mikhail just, like, recognize each other.
Why are we continuing to play this little game? When we all know it is moved to the next stage.
And then immediately, punches are thrown.
It's
so good.
It's amazing. Honestly, the writing and the delivery of the lines, but obviously Naveen Andrew, who's here all the time doing that stuff, but, like, some of the one-liners that Andrew Divoff gets as Mikhail and his execution of those lines it gave me chills just on multiple occasions. Like, at the end of the episode...
There is nothing you could do to me that would make me lead you there.
And then immediately follows that up a minute later with...
There will come a time when your guard is down. And when it is, I will not hesitate a moment before killing you.
Oh, he is stone cold.
Dude just has, like, killer line after killer line, and it's amazing.
That's a good double entendre, because they're lines that make him out to be a killer.
Let's say that was intentional. No, I mean...
But yeah, Mikhail, what a soldier, man. Like, he is committed to the cause, whatever the cause is.
He is, and we'll learn more about his dedication later, but I don't know, the fact that one thing he said that really struck me, when he's telling his, fake story about why he's there and how he got there, he describes the Purge, and I think this is our first reference to the Purge.
I believe so.
I'm sure that some listener will correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong.
I think we would have mentioned it if it had come up before.
He describes the Purge as Dharma, attempting to take out the others, and then the others responding, which is very obviously a lie, as we learn later. The others staged a coordinated poison gas attack on Dharma.
Right, but at this point, we still know so little about Dharma that could be believable.
But what really struck me was, and this is sort of a hindsight, I guess, but as they're walking away and Sayid asks him, what did you tell me was true and what wasn't true, Mikhail insists, even after admitting that, of course, he wasn't part of Dharma, he insists that the Purge, really was Dharma attacking the others and the others retaliating. And I kind of feel like he believes that. Like, obviously the others, had some kind of justification in their own minds for why they had to attack Dharma. There was a history of skirmishes between the camps.
They felt that they were sort of an existential threat.
So I really think that when Mikhail says that the Purge began with, it was Dharma's fault and they were the ones who went on the offensive, I just think that he believes that. I think it speaks to his, he's a true believer. His
blind faith, really, yeah. I think that's probably kind of the party line, and he has... bought it hook, line, and sinker. I know he was there, but I think that's probably also that the story that the others have sort of written into their own history. And when they talk about the Purge, I wonder if that's sort of the line that they use and that they've all...
Right.
Or all those who are not skeptics, right? We know that there are many skeptics among the others, but...
But you've got to have a mythology that defends you as the good guy and not the villain to have a society.
And I get the feeling that that's kind of the history they created, so that they could believe that they were justified.
Yeah. Oh, Mikhail. The other great line that he has is the line about being the last living member of the Dharma Initiative, which I remember showing on the Next Week on Lost highlights at the end of the previous week's episode, and just thinking it was such a great line. And honestly, watching it this week, it was one of the only times I've ever kind of wished that there was still such a thing as a commercial break, because it's just such a great cut to commercial break moment.
Yeah, it's such a good cliffhanger.
But except then it comes back immediately and it just continues. But
right. Well, and shortly thereafter we find out that he's not, in fact, ever been a member of the Dharma Initiative.
And he didn't even have 5 minutes to stop and freak out about that. Oh well.
No, but it was pretty exciting for a minute there to feel like we were going to find out more about Dharma.
Yeah, for sure.
And, we'll settle for finding out more about the others. But, yeah.
Sort
Yeah,
of Desmond is the last living member of the Dharma Initiative. Sort of.
Well, I mean, not to get back into time travel, but, like...
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Kate was once a member of the Dharma Initiative,
in
a
fair.
way.
That's fair. I'm sorry, what were you going to say that wasn't my stupid line about Desmond?
So I think the thing here that is super revealing about the others is when the other shows up.
Ah, yes, Biklu.
And clearly, I mean, she and Mikhail have prepared for war. I mean, she speaks to him in Russian. And she says, you know what to do. And of course, he shoots her. Like, this is a plan. Maybe not this specifically, but they have some code somewhere that says if we're... It seems like they have some code somewhere that says if we're ever in this situation, we shoot each other rather than be taken hostage or whatever. But yeah, I mean, that is pretty scary when we think about the implications of that scene. Like, the others are an army. Like, this is some real military shit, or it seems to be.
You're right. I mean, and honestly, that's what this whole season is setting up. It's the war with the others at the end.
Right.
That's where we're going.
Right. Well, this is a good building block, and we're almost at the midpoint of the season. We are at the midpoint of the season, and I guess if we think about, now we're hinging in this direction, building toward war.
So here's a real hot take. Sayid should have killed Mikhail.
Okay.
I'm just gonna out with that. I mean, I get that he's trying to be the better person this time and not make the mistakes of the past. But Mikhail, as Danielle points out, has shown very clearly that he's willing to kill them all if given, a moment's chance. And lo and behold, we'll end this season by killing a beloved character.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, in another sort of terrifying way.
So, should have done it. Agree? Disagree?
I mean, yeah. So, I mean, I guess, yeah, the parallel that they're drawing to the flashback is that Sayid has truly been sort of reformed and is living a life of remorse, and this would be against his code now. Or
right.
even this person who, like you said, Rousseau makes a pretty good case for, this guy's dangerous, I don't know. But yeah, Sayid's not a killer anymore, or he's trying not to be.
Right. Until they're truly at war, in which case all goes.
All bets are off, yeah.
I mean, maybe part of what's going on is that he's just been really jarred by this cat named Nadia, who, stares at him with these big eyes and seems to somehow be, the embodiment of the Nadia that he has never found.
And looks a fair amount like the cat in the flashback.
Yes, that as well. So maybe that has...
Yeah, and he sees the cat in the jungle at the very end.
Yes.
Whether it's a vision or the cats escape the house. I mean, presumably it's a vision.
I just thought the cat had walked away because cats go wherever they want and don't care.
I mean, there was just a huge explosion.
Thank goodness it didn't kill the cat.
Oh, geez. So,
what happened to the cows?
Explosion,
Did the cows die in the explosion?
I mean, it was a big explosion.
Oh, God, poor cows. I'm sorry, you were going to say something relevant.
Why does John Locke enter 7-7? I mean, his explanation is so simplistic, right? He just says, well, there was a hostile incursion by the others, and that's what, Dr. Chang on the video told me to do. And is that why?
I was given this some thought. And this goes back to the point I think you made at the beginning about Locke kind of being lost and searching for something right now for his next purpose. We're just 2 episodes away from Locke blowing up the submarine.
Shoot.
I know, life comes at you fast. So, 2 weeks from now we're going to have that where, Locke has very clearly adopted the purpose of...
Keep everybody on the island.
Keep everyone on the island. No escape. This is, we're supposed to be here. We belong here. All that jazz. So there's a part of me that wonders, even if he, maybe didn't know consciously that entering 7-7 was going to cause all of the communications equipment to be destroyed, that perhaps that possibility is somehow beginning to tickle at his brain here. He's walking across the island, following the bearing of Locke's stick, looking for purpose. They come across this station with all this equipment that would help them communicate with the outside world.
Of course, that's meaningful.
I don't have any real concrete proof for this, but I've got to wonder if there's a part of Locke that
knew or suspected.
That's thinking like, gee, it would be, I'm uncomfortable by all this communications equipment. Like, this isn't what I want. I don't want to communicate with the outside world. I want to find my purpose here. And, there was some element of danger emanating from this computer where maybe he thought again, I don't think it was a conscious thing necessarily, but maybe, or maybe this is just a sign that that's the direction he's moving in.
Yeah, I don't think we're yet at the place where, even unconsciously, Locke is resisting the idea of communicating with the outside world.
I mean, another possible read of this is that he really didn't know what was going to happen, but after he blew all the shit up, it gave him the idea of, oh, maybe this is good.
That's kind of what I think.
Okay.
I kind of feel more like, he was just kind of weirdly drawn to that computer.
Because he likes games.
Yeah, and then when Dr. Chang is, revealed to be kind of behind this game and he's giving him all these choose-your-own-adventure style codes, I mean, does Locke... does he trust Dr. Chang? Does he... I don't know. I think that's more the space that his head is in. I don't think he's thought far enough ahead to, I should destroy all communications.
Well, I mean, to be fair to your side of the argument, not that we're really arguing, but when Dr. Chang says, to access, satellite or radio communications or whatever it is, press these buttons. He does, and then he tries the sonar and it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess one way to read that would be he's glad it doesn't work and he's glad there's another option. Or maybe he really was trying because he wanted to see if he could communicate. I don't know.
Or maybe, I mean, I think it was almost more of just like a simple curiosity. Like, I think most of what is driving Locke at this point is, well, I have no information at all about like what I'm supposed to be doing. All I have is Echo's stick, and these visions I had, and let's just see where one thing leads to, let's see where this next thing leads. And I think it's more of, I think it's that simple, really. He's just kind of like, well, found this thing. Let's try some stuff. And
I think you've convinced me that this is an Occam's razor situation. We should just that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't particularly matter one way or the other because, like you said, very, very soon he's going to blow up the submarine, which is quite a big deal.
Rosie, I thought of something.
Yes.
If your theory here is right, which I think it is, it means that we earlier this conversation had a debate about whether curiosity killed the cat. I'm sorry, I cracked myself up.
Very witty tonight. Oh dear.
Anyway, should we have any hindsight?
I think Rousseau's involvement here is pretty interesting. She makes the point that, the way I've survived on this island is by avoiding contact with people such as Mikhail. Presumably she's aware of this. Oh no, she says she's never been here before.
Yeah, which was kind of stunning to me.
Which is, is very surprising to me because she's been here for 16 friggin' years.
She said in season 1 that she'd never even seen one of them. She had just heard them, which is also pretty unbelievable in retrospect.
It's just, it's seeming more and more surprising to me that Rousseau, A, survived, and B, was so isolated for so many years. Like, all these people seem to be all over the place. And but I guess no one has just shown up in the last 16 years, so.
Yeah.
Well, no, Desmond has.
That's true. And the real Henry
Kelvin
Gale.
Before him, and yeah.
And probably others that we don't know about.
Right. It's not like there are clearly comings and goings, but anyway, yeah, I don't know. I'm surprised that Rousseau had never been here. I'm surprised that she was able to be so isolated, and I'm maybe even a little sort of skeptical or
I definitely am. I love it when Rousseau shows up, but I think at a certain point that we have to accept that the writers never really knew what they were doing with her and had her say a lot of stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense in retrospect.
I mean, her primary function is to build the mystery, right? Like,
yeah.
she's weird, she's a little bit creepy, she's mysterious, and when she
she's
comes on
Alex's
screen,
mother.
you know you're getting a good plot.
No, it's true.
So, any hindsights for you?
Just that I wanted to point out that this is the first of 3 times that Mikhail sort of miraculously escapes or survives a situation that he seemed trapped in. He's tied up. Somehow he gets out of the being tied up and gets locked at knife point. A couple episodes down the road, he's going to walk through the sonar fence and appear to die, and yet get up from that and be just fine. And then in the finale, he appears to have been shot dead with a spear gun, and then manages to not only get up but swim out of the hatch into the water and detonate a grenade. So the man is quite the escape artist.
Yeah, he comes off as almost like superhuman. Like,
yeah,
because it's not like the writers are, it's not like these are clever tricks of the writers and producers that are like, oh, you didn't see him get hit, that spear missed him. It's like, no, he actually got hit, and he got up from it. Like, he's a bit of a Superman and like a bit of a...
And he has an eye patch.
Yeah, just ups the scary factor.
No, I'm with you, and that's one of the reasons, by the way, and this is a good transition for us, but why I was so excited to talk to Andrew Divoff to figure out, how he brought this character to life in the way he did, which is just quite impressive.
Yeah, so set this up for us. You actually met him at kind of a horror convention?
Yeah, he was in the Los Angeles area for something called Monster Palooza, which is like a sort of a small scale Comic-Con type convention for fans of horror and science fiction and creepy crawly type of popular culture stuff. And Andrew Divoff was there because he has played a lot of this type of character. The type of actor who's played a lot of creepy villains, put makeup on. We sat down at the hotel lobby, the hotel where his convention was at. It was frankly a little noisier than I expected, so you'll hear some background noise. You'll also hear him reference at the beginning a bark beetle infestation and running a logging crew. He's a fascinating life story, which we'll get into plenty over the next couple of segments of this interview. But for your knowledge of that one, he lives in the San Bernardino National Forest outside Los Angeles, sort of near Big Bear. Beautiful place to live. We've been on some great hikes there.
We have.
Some good mountains out there. But anyway, he lives up in the forest and is basically a mountain man, so he'll just talk about
he
that.
ran a logging crew for a while. He brews his own beer and sells it. Renaissance man, fascinating man.
He took down the Berlin Wall, which is something else that we'll talk about in the coming weeks.
We'll share that photo on social this week. Anyway, let's get into it.
So let's start with the beginning from Lost. How did you get cast as Mikhail Bakunin?
You know what? It was. Again, I just have to knock on wood.
He's knocking on the table here.
Yeah, I was so lucky. April Webster cast me in it, and I had actually said no to the show for goodness, I think 4, 5, 6 times.
Really?
For other roles, and I just. I don't know. I was at a time in my life where I wanted something a little more meaty, if you will, in a role, in a sort of a character. And I at that time it coincided with 2003 was an infestation up in the mountains, a bark beetle infestation in the woods, and so I actually had a logging crew and was logging for a few years, and it started in 2003. I did that for about 4 years, going into 4 years, and literally stopped when I accepted the role. And,
wow.
And I went down. I met with April. I did the casting, and JJ was in the room. And again, it was just serendipity. I was lucky. It went very well, and I guess you could say the rest is sort of lore, history, sort of lost history.
Well, I'm so curious. Which roles did they try to get you in before Mikhail?
You'll forgive my sort of ignorance, and I was just in the mood for saying no, and I just kept saying no, not interested, no, didn't want to go in.
They were like minor parts.
I believe they were guest stars.
Okay.
They were guest stars, and so I mean, if you would compare it, I suppose to Mikhail.
Yeah.
They were smaller parts than that. So I mean, I wouldn't say minor. And, no role was really minor.
But was this one was more attractive to you? When you
It was indeed. The fact that this character was an antagonist, but had a code. He had a code of honor. He was an honorable dude, as far as I could see and read. And as far as reading ahead, I only gleaned it from the little that I read in my audition scenes and the sides they gave me. And there were, I believe, 4 or 5 pages, and I believe there was a moment. It was Mikhail, and there was no indication that he would be one-eyed. And it was him on a submarine speaking to his captain, and his captain saying, you disobeyed, essentially, you disobeyed orders, and you know what this means. Essentially, he was going to be court-martialed and summarily executed.
Right, this is in your audition that you
Yes,
okay.
and sort of the background of it, and I think if I say so myself, I will presume to say that the way that I listened, really more than what I put out, the way I listened to that information from my commanding officer and took it, and I remember to this day, I took a deep breath before I answered. And there was a verbal acknowledgement. I didn't do the verbal acknowledgement. I took a deep breath, and I looked at the casting person, in this case my commanding officer, and I nodded. Meaning I did understand what this meant, and I was sticking to my guns, if you will.
Right, your code of honor.
And I think, and that at that moment, that set for me Mikhail's sort of, as I say, his code and what he was willing and not willing to do and why.
Right. Well, I mean, this is jumping ahead from where your character starts, but of course this is making me think about the end of the season where, you get these orders from Ben that you're skeptical about following.
Yes.
But after Ben, explains them to you and reminds you that you're a real loyalist to the cause, you carry out these kind of terrible orders and kill some of your own people.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yeah. It just having to live with himself and sort of, I think it was a self-imposed exile, if you will.
When he's out in the flame station.
Yes. I think rather than being sent there, it's almost as if he chose it, and it was his sort of punishment. It was kind of, as I say, he had done horrible things and had to live with himself and I guess felt that nobody else should have to live with him.
So you think even before he got sent out there, he had probably done something that he wanted to be out there on his own?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it was, as I say, I think it was a self-imposed exile and taking himself away from the pleasantries of communication with other humans. Yeah.
So clearly you knew when you got cast. The first time you appear on the show is just for that brief clip when you're on the monitor. So you knew that wasn't all you were going in for, that brief clip on the monitor.
An actor never knows. Even though, if I may, I'll backtrack to say a show, another 48 hours, for instance. And when I signed up for that, I knew, okay, it's going to be a long thing. It's going to be 6 to 8 months of filming. And so, but then when you're not filming, when you're not working for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you're thinking, man, they're not going to have me back, even though you know that the story would depend on a character coming back. So, to answer more directly, I did think I would be coming back, but I wasn't sure. I had heard that phrase, "You'll be back." I'd heard it before, and I sort of said quietly to myself, I said, yeah, right, sure.
Well, it's funny. I just remember as a fan, after your character appears on the screen, there's all this excitement. Everyone was waiting and waiting for this guy. People called you Patchy, I think.
Yes, Patchy. And it was actually Josh Holloway who I think coined that.
Yeah?
Yeah, I was coming to I was going into makeup, and he was coming out, and he he reached out. He said, "Hey, you're that Patchy guy." and I said, "Hey, how you doing, man?" And I said, "Wow." I said, "I'm a fan." And he said, "Yeah, good to have you here, man." And, he was
That's
very
very
jovial,
funny.
very outgoing guy. And so from that moment on, I remember being asked, even on the photos, how would I like to be sort of called or referred to? And I said, "Yeah, Patchy. I like Patchy."
Like in the promo photos for the episodes?
Yes.
Okay, I got it.
And so and also I guess a little of that had to do with Mikhail Bakunin being such a sort of a tongue twister thing. With a wonderful back history, as you know, he was a Russian philosopher,
Yeah.
father of anarchy.
Yes.
So it was I figured, let's leave it at Patchy.
Why do you think Lost had a lot of fun with naming characters after philosophers, right? I mean, obviously John Locke and Rousseau, and they had a couple others. Did you ever have any idea, or did you come up with any idea for why your character would have been named after this Russian anarchist?
After this anarchist, yes,
Yeah.
and I think and going back to these the names of philosophers, I think indeed living up to our higher selves. I think the philosophers and even the anarchist in this sense, the philosophy and the idea of anarchy, it's not sort of abstract. It's not disheveled. It has a reason. There's a code again for that. As violent and as ultra sort of as ultra destructive as it may seem. There is a code to it and a reason for it. And so as I think all of the when I first started to get into this show. And I mentioned this to JJ. I said in the room, I said, so somebody asked me. I believe it might have been April. So what do you think? What's your feeling about this? And I said, I said two words. I said avatars and demigods. And so this was in the third season. And they kind of looked at me and sort of nodded. And I think in that same sense, that naming the characters for these philosophers is sort of naming them for our better angels, if you will, our higher selves, what we aspire to.
Interesting. So these characters, you were sort of saying these are archetypes, these are big themes that are
Yes.
playing out here, and
Yes.
you think JJ probably liked that, huh?
I don't know. He was sort of listening and watching, very, very observant, and didn't really say a whole lot. But you know how sometimes an actor's best senses are listening and being aware, sort of, if you will, if I could use another sort of a genre term, having that spidey sense about being in a room.
Yeah. Yeah. So you obviously come back. You're in the Flame Station. The eye patch, did they do that or did you do that?
No. This was them. I was told, and interestingly enough, other characters in the show, as I found out later, and it was such a beautiful compliment. I believe it was Dom who told me.
Dominic plays Charlie. Yeah.
Yes, Charlie, who said to me, and Evangeline as well. When we heard that there was going to be a character with a patch, we think, oh, here we go. We jumped the shark, I didn't. To me, it was a very cool thing, and I'll share this with you. What I was a little disappointed in, Sammy, was when I saw the patch. It was like, forgive my French, fuck, dude. I mean, I could buy this at Rite Aid. I mean, what the hell? I mean, and so. But then it started to make sense when you saw that everything, including beer, was so sort of generic, and so so that made perfect sense to me. But no, that certainly wasn't my idea. What was my idea was what was under the patch, what was underneath, and so the makeup director, gentleman by the name of Steve, and please follow up with his surname. So Steve says to me, wouldn't it be kind of cool to to reveal the patch.
Right, and this is in the finale of the season when you swim into the station. Yeah.
Yes, into the Pearl.
The Looking Glass.
I beg pardon?
The Looking Glass.
The Looking Glass.
Forgive
me.
That's all right.
Yes, and so in the hatch there with the patch, we thought, wouldn't it be kind of cool when I come up and surface and come up? Wouldn't it be kind of cool to to reveal what's underneath the eye? And so that scrambled egg that was under there was Stephen's beautiful artwork, and we literally spent, I think it was it was about 2 hours after having filmed all day. He said, I got an idea, let's do this and we'll walk it out. We'll show it to them as opposed to talking about it. And so sure enough, we went out there and I believe we showed Mr. Bender, who was Jack Bender.
Yeah, we've talked to Jack. Jack is great.
Yeah. And so we went out to the set, and when they cut, he kind of brought me, because it was nighttime and I couldn't see very well. And so we showed him patch, and it was all gooey, and it had the the slime that you put on it for reflective purposes. And so he looked at it, nodded, said yes, and Matthew Fox was out there as well. Took a look and chuckled, and so we got to display that, and that was kind of cool, sort of the reveal in the hatch. But yes, I mean, to me, it wasn't a big deal to play the patch, and I wasn't sort of conscious of it while wearing it, but it definitely added to the character, no question.
So this is the most cogent and lovely take I have ever heard on why Lost chose to name characters after philosophers and things.
Fuck yeah.
Naming them for our better angels or our higher selves. I mean, that's lovely. And it makes way more sense to me than like, oh, John Locke was somehow like living out John Locke's philosophies. Like, no, He was sort of, if we think about John Locke as more of a like platonic ideal of, Island John Locke, or like the philosopher as a better angel of the John Locke we know. That's beautiful.
I like it too, and I think that it's really applicable, and you really see it with his character. Mikhail Bakunin, named after this Russian anarchist, where Andrew sort of, suggests that it's not like Mikhail is an anarchist character, but he's named for someone who is associated with a pretty, unpopular sort of, chaotic and violent type ideology, but who, who, as Andrew says, who had a code and who was trying to do something good, and I think that's the best possible read you could have of Mikhail.
Yeah, and is deeply devoted to it.
Yeah, for sure. So anyway, I agree with you on that.
The other
Avatars
thing...
and demigods.
Ugh. Avatars and demigods. The Mikhail Bakunin story. The other thing is, I know he declined to talk about this, but I am dying to know what other roles on Lost he apparently he decided to turn down before this one. Oh my goodness. I mean, was he considered for Ben Linus? Was he considered for one of the main cast? I mean, it sounds like they were all kind of small parts.
Although not minor, as he said, because no role is minor. Which I love.
Right, a lovely thing to say.
That's such a good question. I hadn't really thought about it, but I could kind of see him playing that Henry Gale role in The Hatch.
I kind of do too, and it seems like it has to be a villain.
Yeah. We will have a lot more from the conversation with Andrew in the coming weeks, and in fact we'll talk quite a bit more as well about this episode, Enter 7-7, talking about the scene with Sayid talking about those great one-liners that he has and the tension in the room. So stay tuned for that in the coming weeks.
Yeah, next week we will be watching Par Avion. It's a Claire episode. A notable revelation about Claire's past, which I'm pretty excited to discuss.
I will be excited when I remember what it is.
It's her father.
Oh, we don't know that yet?
No!
Ugh. They
I'm
held
sorry
that
if I
one out
ruined it
too
for
long.
you.
Yeah, it's okay. So yeah, we'll be back next week. Par Avion, more from Andrew Divoff. In the meantime, find us on social media. We are on Twitter at The Hatch Podcast, also Facebook.com/The Hatch Podcast.
If you like the show and are so inclined to leave us a rating and or a review, we'd appreciate it. It helps more people find the show.
We mentioned this earlier, but if you would like to leave us a hot take, we will play it on the show. You can call us at +1 9546 Dharma. Again, that's 1 9546 Dharma.
Thanks again to Spencer for that hot take. Thank you, Sammy, for your discussion of my hot take, which totally transformed my opinion about this episode, and I'm so glad it did.
More than happy to do it. As always, also thank you to Andy G. Cohen, who did our theme music, and Danny Roth for our cover art.
We will talk to you next week.
Namaste.